Hello, everybody, and I am Dr. Dan Kalish, and I am excited to be here to be doing the first of what is a three-part mentorship mini-series. And we are going to be unlocking lab insights. This is a hands-on workshop. This is just straight up lab interpretation. What is this? Lab interpretation, lab interpretation, lab interpretation. So we have asked you, our audience, to submit labs. And boy, did you respond. We got a huge number of you all signed up. And we have more labs than I can count. I was going to say hundreds and hundreds, but it's more than I can count. So we're not going to be able to go through all the labs, unfortunately, that you guys sent in. But I tried to curate and pick out some really good ones so we can all learn a lot. And we've been doing these mentorship mini series for quite a few years, but this one is actually a little different because this is a three-part series that's mimicking pretty much exactly what the Q&A calls in the mentorship class are actually like. So if you're actually in the actual real mentorship class, you would get access to this whole amazing year-long world of curriculum that I've built in these last 20 years. By the way, we're celebrating 20 years next year of me teaching this mentorship course. And so you get all that curriculum, you listen to all these lectures, you learn how to do these things, and then we have these weekly live Q&A calls for the whole year where you submit your labs and we get to review them. Except for in the real mentorship class, there's small groups, so we get to review basically everybody's labs every week. In this case, it's a huge group because the thing is free, but if you like this concept of learning how to interpret labs by interpreting labs, then you should seriously think about signing up for the mentorship. We'll be starting another group pretty soon. For those of you that are brand new to this and don't even know who the heck I am, because we got so many new signups, I am Dan Kalish. I founded this training program, online training program in 2006. We've trained thousands and thousands of doctors in how to interpret labs, how to design programs and protocols, how to set up practices. I've worked with the Mayo Clinic. I've worked with really some of the top lab directors in our industry for many, many years, and am working on curating and delivering all this complex information in really simple and easy to understand ways. So we talk about this functional medicine world, and in my mind, functional medicine is all about lab interpretation, and I want you guys to be the best in the industry at doing that. And right now we have a dearth of training in how to design protocols, how to set up patient programs based on labs. And so my career at this point is really oriented around getting other practitioners up to speed on how to do all this stuff. And if you're thinking about joining the year-long certification training program, we're starting one in September. You get a $1,111 discount. If you're listening to this and you use this checkout code, you'll get this in your email inbox, I'm sure, but you can take a snapshot of that QR code. And what happens at the end of the year, the mentorship, is you are confident. It takes a year, okay? You're confident in how to read these basic labs. You're confident in understanding how to set up a program and watch it work with a bunch of real patients. Because during the mentorship, you're working with your patients. This is not some I'm learning kind of then I'm going to do it later class. You're actually learning how to do the work as you do the work so that by the end of the year, it's more like a residency program where you're actually engaged and working with patients. You're practicing, but you're learning at the same time, okay? So the complex part about this, and we're going to talk on this today in a minute when we look at labs, is that you have to be able to design multiple programs with multiple labs. You might have an adrenal and a GI or a GI and organic acids, and you need to be able to overlap programs and understand what the prioritization sequencing kind of thing should be. And then you have to do something that you're pretty sure is going to work. Okay. And I think that's the hardest thing. I know it was for me in the first few years of doing this. Like, I had no idea if this adrenal program was going to work or not. And I just had Dr. Timmons teaching me how to do the adrenal program. And I thought, this is a nice old naturopath. He had gray hair. He looked like he'd been doing it for a long time. And he's like, do this, kid. So I did it and it would work. And then I would go back and then he would say, do this. And I would do it and then it would work. He always used to call me Danny Boy. And then I would say, this one's new. Bill, what do I do? And he'd say, do this. And then it would work. And after a few years, I got really confident. So that experience with Dr. Timmons was like over the course of 6 or 7 years. I have taken that whole experience and smushed it down into a year. Why? Because in the mentorship class, you get exposure to over 400 cases just in the live calls alone, not yours, the other students, right? Yours plus the other students. And in those years when Timmons was training me, I was testing, I don't know, 50 people a year, maybe 100 people a year. So it took like 4 years just to get 400 cases. or just smushing all that down into one intensive year. And it's not fake cases, it's like real cases that your colleagues and fellow students are trying to manage and struggle with and do for real. This is like a for real class. Okay, so anyways, that's what the mentorship is all about. And there's a few spots that are still open. I hope some of you will take it seriously and sign up. And let's give you a little taste of what it's going to be like. So now I want to see if we have, ideally, some of these people that submitted labs actually on the call. So Brett, are you there? Brett, is that you? I'm going to unmute you, Brett, and let's see if this is the right Brett, in case there's more than one Brett. But there is a Brett that submitted a lab, and I've got it right here. Brett, can you hear me there? I've got you unmuted. It's nice to get chimed in on from Brett, like about what's going on with this particular patient. If we can't grab him, that's not a problem because we've got a ton of other ones. And Brett, if you can hear me, but your mic's not working or something, we can, just type me a little text message in there and we can call on you later. And let's see, in the meantime, let's pull up this one from Bridget. Okay, so this is a metabolomics test from Genova Diagnostics. Some other lab companies would call it an organic acids test because it's an organic acids test. And when you're looking at these are beasts of a test. And there's a few different examples. There's this one we have, and then there's one from a different lab that we can do next, which Andrea sent in. Is that? Oh, hang on. Oh, no, Adriana sent in. Yeah, here. Adriana is here. Yeah, okay. And let's grab Adriana. Adriana, can you hear me? I got you unmuted here. See if we can grab it. And I want to compare and contrast these tests so you can see.
Yes, hi.
Oh, hey, this is yours, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the patient, just like the top 3 complaints. What's going on?
So a little bit of bloating, but interestingly not after protein necessarily like meats, but some vegetables. That's been the most complaint. A little bit of fatigue, especially in the afternoon, and just kind of an overall energy problems and bloating. That was pretty much it.
Okay, so this is like the standard patient that we all see every day, all the time. My digestion's not that great and I'm tired, right? That's like the American population. So let's address this, and we're gonna look at the entire case, right? So we wanna think about, and we have 2 tests. We have the GI map, the gut test, and we have the organic acids. And we wanna see how these 2 tests can be integrated into a single program that's gonna address all that. Now, if you were in the mentorship, which you're not, obviously, we'd also have an adrenal lab. So we're gonna just put that to the side now, but we would be juggling normally an adrenal test and what to do there, a GI test, and then organic acids. But it's plenty enough, I think, just to deal with these 2. And so let's start with the GI. And on the GI side, we're looking for just 3 simple things. Is there microbiome imbalance? How are the GI organs working? And then what's happening with pathogens? Okay, so microbiome, organs, and pathogens. So the microbiome is right here, and it's not doing well. You can see all these markers are low, so we know the microbiome is in bad shape. And that's going to set a whole bunch of things to happen. Then on the intestinal health markers, elastase is low, so we know there's a pancreatic enzyme problem, so it's a pancreatic problem. Sig-A is low, so we know there's an immune-related problem in the gut lining. And then zonulin is high, so we know there's leaky gut. So we know there's a lack of the microbiome. Good organisms aren't present in the numbers they should be, and then the pancreas and small intestine are not doing that great. And there's a little bit of dysbiosis, but it wasn't that bad. And I don't think there was any major pathogens, no major pathogens, yeah? Okay, so that sets the stage for the first part of this. And let's pull up a program here. And I'll show you how you can sequence all these things. So when we're doing the sequencing part of this, we've got 3 different tests: adrenals, GI, and organic acids. And organic acids has many names. It could be metabolomics, It could be OAT test. It could be OAP. Okay, and we're going to look at those in a minute. So in general, we're skipping the adrenals in this case because we don't have that test, but usually there'd be an adrenal program running also. And so in this case, we're going to look at how do we integrate GI programs and what's on the organic acids into one integrated program. And for the organic acids, there's 4 different things you need to think about. So detox capacity, brain or neurotransmitters, let's just say brain, mitochondria, and then there's a repeat there of gut, but we have gut on both sides. So 4 things you need to consider for organic acids. Do you want to treat liver detox pathways, the brain, mitochondria, or the gut? And in the GI programs, there's 3 things you need to consider. Do you need to fix the microbiome? Do you need to fix GI organs? And do you need to fix the any pathogens? So these are our choices. This is like our smorgasbord of what we're looking at. So for GI, we already just said there's a big microbiome problem. There's some GI organ related issues. Okay, we can even fill in which ones they are here. There's pancreas. There's SIG-A, that's the immune response in the gut, and then zonulin, leaky gut. So we need to fix those 3. Leaky gut, no leaky gut. No major pathogens that were super bad. Okay, so we know we have that. And we need to treat the microbiome and the pancreas and deal with SIG-A. So let's kind of tidy up that. Okay, so those are 3 things we just saw in the GI. Now we're going to look at organic acids, and we're going to try to pick among the 3 things, because we already know we have to treat the gut. So those 3 things are detox, brain, mitochondria. So we're going to go to this other test here. And we are taking into account what's going on with the patient, which is that they're tired. So you could be tired for a lot of different reasons. And we're going to just skip to the good part here. And we can see under the glycolysis section, there's 2 or 3 markers that are on the high side. So we know glycolysis not doing that great. So that's mitochondrial related. We look under the Krebs cycle, doesn't look super bad. There's one a little low, one a little high. Doesn't look super bad. Fatty acid oxidation doesn't look super bad. There's a little bit, but not a lot. And we're looking at B vitamins, a little bit, but not a lot. We're just scanning through, but we're really, in the back of your mind, you should be thinking liver, brain, mitochondria. Each one of these markers can tie back to liver, brain, or mitochondria. Ah, finally, there it is, under stress and mood. See all those high markers? So, brain. There was a little bit with the mitochondria, especially glycolysis, and then there's a lot going on with the brain. How do we know? Because this marker is like super high. It's the one that's the most out of range so far. So mitochondria, brain, liver, and we're still looking for liver detox related stuff. And again, more with the brain. Tryptophan metabolism is off. The inflammatory markers related to the brain are off. So a lot going on with stress in the brain. And then down here, you got to kind of scan for a while. Glutathione status, a little bit with glutathione. So there's some problem with that, liver detox. And let's see. We're going to skip over the gut thing because we're just kind of short on time. Okay, so it looks like, oh, here we have a nice summary here too, right? So it looks like there's some need for liver detox support. That would be things like glutathione and glycine, but primarily, we saw brain. So if we go back to our little list here, ding, 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 bingo here, a little bit with detox, and specifically they need glutathione support. The brain, there was a big problem though. They had problems with the catecholamines, or this is to say neurotransmitter problems. The mitochondria, it was all to do with glycolysis, so that's blood sugar related. And the gut we already talked about. So now as you're starting to create a program, we can think, oh, well, we want to do a GI program that addresses the microbiome, the pancreas, and the leaky gut SIG-A problem. We want to do an organic acids problem that addresses neurotransmitters. Well, let's look at that one more time just so you can see. There. So on the neurotransmitter markers, why did I say this is the most important thing? Because look, how many are high? So this one, 5-HIAA, they call it. That one's quite high. Kynureninic acid and quinolinic acid are actually low. That's a catastrophically bad thing for your brain. And then up here, homovanillinic is high. And let's look at a diagram that'll explain what that actually means in case you're not up to speed on all these pathways. And go ahead, if you have questions, type them in. We can cover off on them in a little bit. So on this particular patient, and this is what you learn in the mentorship. So you would be in a lecture, you'd be learning about the pathways, and then you would see a test the next day that has the pathways screwed up on it. So we just said glycolysis was a problem. That's right here. So you learn this pathway and you learn what are the nutrients that control that pathway. You see there's a problem there, you know exactly how to treat. I just said the citric acid cycle, Krebs cycle, wasn't that bad. We can ignore that. But we want to focus on the blood sugar part of this, and that's B vitamins and lipoic acid. So boom, you know right away you want to treat with that. Again, you learn the pathways, you learn the markers, you got the protocols all set. And then the other thing that showed up kind of strongly on this one was the homovanillate. So that's a urinary byproduct of dopamine. So if this marker is off, it means you got a problem with dopamine, and that's going to cause you to be fatigued every single time. They also had a problem with the serotonin marker, like a lot of serotonin markers actually, remember? So the kynureninic acid was screwed up, quinolinic was really low, 5-HIAA over here was high. So clearly there's a problem with the brain in terms of how we make serotonin out of tryptophan. So that's a whole nother issue. Okay. And then the next pathway, okay, hopefully you're thinking at this point, I should be taking the mentorship because I don't know all these pathways. That's it, okay. So how do I know they're low in glutathione? Uh, Kathy asked that. Kathy, take the mentorship. Pyroglutamic acid was off, remember? Pyroglutamic acid. If that's off, glutathione is off. If you see alpha hydroxybutyric acid off, your glutathione is off. If you see a problem with cysteine or glycine, you have a problem with glutathione. And then up here, you can see all the methylation pathways. There's more on that, but okay. So we know this particular patient has a glutathione problem because their pyroglutamic acid was high. You learn the pathways, you learn the markers, then you can make sense of treatments. Yeah. You can do all this in a year. I'm telling you, if you put your mind to it and you take the mentorship, a year from now, you could be better. You could be in the top 1% of lab interpretation skills people in our industry. How can I confidently say that? Because I've been in this industry for 33 years and I know kind of what the average knowledge base is of current functional medicine practitioners in terms of lab interpretation, and it's declined rapidly. When I was first starting out 30 years ago, everybody was good at labs. That's what you had to be good at labs. You couldn't open a business. But these days, there's so many people that want to do functional medicine. You can be kind of crappy at interpreting labs and still have a pretty big practice. But guess what? If you get good at interpreting labs, the level of results you have is just going to be astronomically better than what you're getting now. I just absolutely can guarantee it. I've been doing this for 19 years. I've been training people. At the end of the year, they're just so much better. It's not even, it's like an old dial-up phone and a brand new iPhone. It's not even comparable when you guys get your skills up. And we're just scratching on the surface of like the most basic stuff right now. This is like kids play, right? Okay, so homovanillinic high, we know we need to work with the brain. So now let me just show you real quick what a program would look like. And everybody, and in the mentorship, Sharon asked the question, I'm glad, every patient, in my mind, the fundamental 3 tests that you just have to run on everybody is a hormone panel, including stress, thyroid, and reproductive hormones. So hormone testing, at least the adrenals, if not thyroid, and progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. So adrenals plus hormones, everybody. GI or microbiome testing on everybody, and organic acids or metabolomics testing on everybody. That has been the basic workup that I've been teaching for 20 years. Adrenals, GI, and metabolomics or organic acids. That'll give you the broad picture of what's going on with the liver, the brain, the cardiovascular system, the stress response, the microbiome. That'll give you the ability to start to, execute um, high quality programs that really work. And if you don't have all three of those labs, it just doesn't make any sense to even get started because you're looking at part of a picture. You're looking at a fragment of a picture. It just reminds me when when my son was young, and I thought this was a good idea at the time. I don't know now. You could judge me for this if you want and say I was an idiot, but we bought a 1982 a 1982 Mercedes 240D. It was a really old but beautiful Mercedes, and he just thought it was the coolest car. I thought it was cool, so it was a car he drove around in for a while when he was younger, and we got it home, and then my sister borrowed it coincidentally like a few days later, and she's like, Danny, like the tires on this are completely shot and the brakes don't even work. I was like, oh, okay. And you don't know my sister, but she actually paid to get the tires changed and the brakes done. Okay. And so I was seeing one part of this car, the beauty of the vintage Mercedes. My sister is like, hey, you got to look at the whole car. So if you're just doing GI testing, it would be like not checking the brakes and tires on a used car. You can't just do part of the thing. You got to look at the totality of the human body. You have to see and at least do GI, organic acids, and the stress hormones. And organic acids gets you liver, brain, and mitochondria. That's a lot. So when we do these three basic tests, you've got liver, brain, mitochondria, all the stress response, adrenal stuff, female hormones, male hormones, and everything to do with the gut. That's the basic workup. Okay, basic workup, and you can get it all done. Different companies, anywhere I'd say under $1,000 for all three labs. And the thing is, if you don't do all three labs, let's say you just do a GI test, what if it's like this patient and the main problem is their brain? It's not going to work. And then they're going to get frustrated. They're going to pay for all this time and money and year time and supplements. And then a year later, it's not going to work. So you have to have people invest in the lab testing up front. In the long run, it'll save them thousands and thousands of dollars if you just figure out what's actually happening in the beginning. But most people don't know how to interpret the labs very well, okay? So they're scared to order all these labs. You guys don't even know which labs to order. So you got to take my class. I'll teach you which labs to order and how to interpret them, and you'll get results on patients instantly. In fact, years ago, somebody said they paid for the whole mentorship program, which sounds expensive, in their first like 3 or 4 new patients that they processed. If you just get 3 or 4 patients through my program I'm trying to teach, you're going to have already covered the cost of the whole tuition. Okay, so in the scheme of what you're trying to do with your practice, it's not a lot of money. All right, so now let me just show you a quick program here. Let's see where to go. And you can learn this stuff. I want to give you guys the confidence. I see it every year. We graduate people that learn how to do this and are really good at it. I can tell from the students, I can tell the students in class. So here would be a typical program for this kind of person. So let's start off with GI. So they had a deficient microbiome. So we want to do something like polyprebiotic powder from Pure Encapsulations. You might have a different version of that you want. That's fine. That's from Pure. And that's what it sounds like. It's a bunch of prebiotics. So that'll get the microbiome to start to grow out properly. So I would do 1 scoop 2 times a day away from food. And then they had an enzyme problem. So they say digestzymes from Designs for Health. Let's give them 1 or 2 with a meal. Get the enzyme thing working. And they had the leaky gut problem. So let's say the integrity powder. That's another product from Pure. You can use any company. I'm just using these because I know them the best. That's for the IgG problem. To boost up the immune response, and that would be, again, 1 scoop 2 times a day. So that's not too bad. They make a drink twice a day. They get their prebiotic stuff. They get their powder to repair leaky gut and some enzymes. And now all of a sudden they come back and they say, oh, all my bloating is gone. I can't believe how much better I feel. How long do you do that for? I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and then reevaluate, so a couple months of the GI program. And then we said that they have a glycolysis issue. So you would use, I like Dioxinol. That's from Orthomolecular. It's a great product. Look at it. It's got tons of blood sugar stuff in it, and that'll knock out that glycolysis problem. And it's only 2 pills a day. It's kind of expensive, but it's 2 pills a day. It's packed with chromium, lipoic acid, all the stuff you need for your blood sugar. Okay, so that'll knock out the glycolysis problem that we talked about. They had a glutathione problem, and so usually we use NAC. Comes in a 900 milligram. Want to do a bunch of that. That's for the glutathione boosting. This is for blood sugar. This is for glutathione. And then, and then the whole point of this was the brain was not doing well. Simple dimple, all they need is some tyrosine, 500 milligrams. And they had a little bit of a problem with the serotonin too, right? So you could give some 5-HTP at night, something like that. That would be an integrated program for this person. The GI part, probably 2 or 3 months. This other part down here, somewhere in the 4 to 6 month range, stop, retest, see where they're at. Okay. And again, keep typing in questions. I'll do questions at the end. Let me just get through a couple of these tests first. All right, so thank you very much, Adriana, for submitting that. And then I just want to show this one. Okay, this is from Bridget. Let me see if Bridget's on the line right now. I don't see Bridget on the line right now. However, let's use her test because it's a good test. So again, this is organic acids, but from Genova. They call it a metabolomics. It's a urine sample only. And they have the general summary page here. But remember, we're really looking for 4 things: brain, liver, mitochondria, gut. Brain, liver, mitochondria, gut. Brain, liver, mitochondria, gut. For those 4 things. So let's look at these 4 sections. It's very similar to the test we just looked at, which was from Diagnostic Solutions Lab. And don't ever pay attention to these summary pages here. Nutrient overview. That's for amateur hour. These summaries. That's not lab interpretation. That's like ridiculous. You got to go to where the data is and see what's actually happening. You don't want to govern your patient practice with an algorithm. And I mean, they make it pretty darn easy. They got it color coded, and red is bad. Okay. Red is like stop, something bad is happening. So just look right here, fatty acids, red is bad. Okay, so there's a problem with beta oxidation, like a big problem because both those markers are high. Lower down, the citric acid cycle doesn't look that bad. Lipid peroxides are high, that's not good. Okay, and let's see what's going on here. Now we get into the real meat of this. Again, it takes about a year, but at the end of a year, you'll get this down. There's some malabsorption, a little bit with the B vitamins, but we're looking for outrageously bad things. Okay, outrageously bad fat metabolism is looking like our outrageously bad contender here. And there's some oxidative stress. So lipid peroxides are high. That means lipids are being oxidized or damaged. Pyroglutamic acid is high. That's back to our glutathione indicator. See, you knew that already. How hard was that? Here, remember I said alpha hydroxybutyric acid? If that's high, that's another glutathione indicator. Remember? If you go back to this diagram here. And you just, once you memorize these charts, this gets really easy. There's your alpha hydroxybutyric down there. There's your pyroglutamic, and we know that's glutathione. And then the most important part of this lab probably that most practitioners would miss is that both adipic acid and subearic acid were high. So that means there's a problem with fatty acid oxidation. That gets missed. Let me just say it this way. I've never had a new patient that came in that said, oh, my other doctor said I have a fatty acid oxidation problem. This is missed like almost all the time. So you need to be able to get fat into the citric acid cycle so you can burn it up for energy. And this patient has Zippo there and Zippo there. Both of those markers were high. That means that that system is not working. They have a long chain fatty acid disorder, perhaps. What does that mean? That means when you try to burn fat, it doesn't work very well. When you're at rest, sitting around like we all are right now, 60, 70, 80% of your energy is coming from burning fat. If you're exercising hard, obviously all that changes. But fat oxidation, beta oxidation, it's a very important fuel supply for your brain, for your heart, for your liver, for everything. So if adipic acid and subearic acid are both high, which is the case for this patient, it means you can't take fat fully, can't take fat properly and put it into the citric acid cycle. How do you fix that? There's a nutrient called carnitine, which will fix that overnight. It'll get it working. It's the only way that I know of biochemically to fix that problem. You can add in vitamin B2 and magnesium if you want to be all persnickety about it, but you got to have the carnitine or this isn't going to work. And it's not a blood sugar problem. It can be confused with a blood sugar problem because symptoms can be similar. It's just that they're not burning fat versus not burning glucose. And if this problem goes untreated, it could go on forever and they just won't do well. Okay, how do we know that? Because we're scanning this test, we're looking for four things: gut, liver, mitochondria, and brain. The last case that we just saw was brain, sort of stood out. This one, we're just, I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. We're just looking for like the worst markers on here. What are the worst markers on here? What are the ones that just stand out? You're like, wow, that looks like the worst ones. Right here, okay? What category is that? Cellular energy and fat metabolism, the burning of fat. If you can't burn fat, and I'm telling you, you will be the first person that's ever known this about this patient. How did you learn it? Because you ran their metabolomics or organic acids test. There's another outrageously high marker here. Xanthronic acid, you see that one? Extremely high. The reference range is 0.9. It's at 0.8, 1.8 almost. So it's about double the reference range. That's a very specific marker for vitamin B6. Okay. If this person doesn't take carnitine, you're not going to get their mitochondria to work very well, not even a little bit, because it just can't. It just can't happen. So let's just divert for a moment. And if you were in the mentorship class, you would be listening to lectures about this. Then we'd be talking about it in class. Then you would say, hey, I found one on my patient. I've got one of these. And then we go, oh, okay, here's the protocol. Let's talk about how to make this work, you know. And let me just show you here what we're up against. These are the lecture slides from the mentorship, which many of you are about to sign up for because you're so intrigued by this. Okay, so here's what we're talking about. You got to understand this pathway because this is missed by 99% of doctors. So, and this is not a peripheral thing. This is 60, 70% of your ATP when you're not exercising. It's happening because you're burning fat. The major fatty acid that we burn is called palmitic acid or palmitate. It's big. It can't get across the outer and then inner membranes of the mitochondria. So this green space here is the mitochondria. So here's the problem your body has. You got this fat in the cytosol. You got to get it into the inside of the mitochondria so you can make energy. And it can't just diffuse in because there are these membranes that are made out of fat. And the fat can't get through the fat. It's too big and it's too fatty. It won't get through there. And thankfully, it doesn't just leak in. I always thought if you ate, like I don't do this anymore very often, but I used to always eat a pint of ice cream. If you eat that much fat all at one time, you probably just drop dead if your fat could get right into the mitochondria, you know, it just probably kill you. But anyways, your body has to take that palmitic acid, break it down into something smaller, cram a carnitine onto it, and then get it through both of these membranes. The only way that this can happen for the primary source of energy in the human body. So if you don't have the carnitine, sufficient carnitine there, there's nothing else that can do that. And it's like one by one, the carnitine goes out, it grabs the fat, it brings it in, it goes back, it grabs another one, brings it in, it goes back and forth like that, like billions of times a second in every cell. I'm gonna say this again, if you don't have the carnitine, this won't work. And if you don't have the carnitine, then what you see on the lab is high adipic and subearic acid. Here, this is what we're seeing on the lab. We're seeing, they call it adipate here, it's the same thing. Adipate and subearate are both high. They're going up because the fatty acids are not going into the mitochondria. They're going somewhere else because you don't have enough carnitine. How much carnitine do you want to give? 2,000, 2,500 a day with some magnesium and B2 will get this patient's system working. See again, here's your adipic acid, subearic acid. If you look at the lab report, it's got it up here too. See that? Those are both high. That pathway is shut down. And in this case, remember the last one we saw it was glycolysis. That's how we were going to fix the mitochondria on the last patient. In this patient, you could give them lipoic acid all day long. You could give them chromium. You could give them lipoic acid. You could give them a massage. It doesn't matter what you give them to improve glycolysis. That's not where the problem is. Okay, you got to get the adipic acid and subearic acid working. That's like the brakes and the tires on the Mercedes that I bought that were missed. You can't, and if you miss this, you're in a death trap. People just won't get better, and you're used to be wondering a year later why the patient didn't get better. So spending a couple $300 on these metabolomics tests will always come back in a really beneficial way for you and your patients. All right. So, and this person also had this outrageous B6 problem. Oh, and if you guys are, oh yeah, here, one last thing, and then here, Figlu is high and xanthuric acid is high. So what do those both relate to very strongly? Okay, this is a quiz. Type in the answer. I'll give you a hint. It starts with M. It's got a Y in it. This is like that, what is that game show? Where it was like, I forget the name of it, and the letter would turn. Thank you, Kathy got it. Methylation. So what do you think is going to happen if your Figlu is high, you don't have enough folate, and the xanthuric acid marker, the B6 marker, is like super high, you don't have enough B6? Let's look at the pathway. Ta-da. That's right here. So now we know this person can't methylate very well. Why? Because they don't have the folate and the B6 they need to make all this stuff work. Up here, the top part of this diagram is methylation. So we want to give them B6, B12, and folate, along with all the other B vitamins. And then we really want to work on their carnitine shuttle, right? Okay, so let's look at a program for this person. I'm telling you, if you take the mentorship, you'll be doing this hours and hours a week. So the way that we have, oh, for those of you that joined us late here, I got to do something promotional here. So the way that we have the mentorship set up is that you have an hour each week of live call that you attend and you submit your labs, and we review one of your cases every week along with the other people in your class. And they're small groups. And we have the best faculty in the world. I teach a ton of the classes, and we have two other faculty members that are even better than I am. So we have the best teachers in the world. And then there's a huge curriculum each week that you go through to learn about beta oxidation, to learn about how do you make glutathione, and why is pyroglutamic acid the most important marker. Like the most important marker on all the tests that we've seen in this last 42 minutes, hands down, pyroglutamic acid. That's the most important marker that we've seen. How can I say that? It's what Richard Lord taught me. He's the scientist that invented these tests back in the 80s. Most important marker on everything that we've just seen, pyroglutamic acid. Why? Because it tells you the glutathione status. And if you don't know your glutathione status of your patient, you're in for a world of pain, and so are they. That's the most important marker that you want to look at in all these tests, glutathione status. That's the starting marker, okay? So learning all that stuff, figuring all that out, it takes a little while. And we have lectures on each thing. So you listen to the lecture, you learn about it in that format online, you come to the live classes, you submit your labs, and you hear other cases. And then we have another 3 or 4 hours every week of other classes that you're not in, but those are all posted and recorded for you to listen to. We have thousands of hours of this that you can listen to. So more than you could ever listen to in your lifetime is recorded and available to you. So at the end of the year, you have a minimum of 400 cases that you reviewed. That's if you're a slacker and all you did was show up for your one class. If you took the time to listen to the other 3 classes, you'd have, I don't know, what's that, 1,200 cases, 1,600 cases. And that's not even going back into like last year's classes. And once you get like 400 to 500 cases under your belt and you've heard this 400 or 500 times, you're going to be you're going to understand it. And to try to get 400 or 500 of your own patients takes a while. So the mentorship just speeds up the learning curve dramatically. At the end of the year, people learn how to read labs. So for those of you that joined us late, we have a discount that we're offering for our September 16th start date. It's over $1,000 off. You need this QR code and that mini mentor 25 code. If you forget this, you remember tomorrow, you'll get an email on all this, or you can email our office. If you want to sign up, you can't find the discount codes, but you get like a grand off, all right, which is a pretty good deal. And was there anything else I'm supposed to say about that? I think that was it. Yeah, it's starting soon, okay, in a few weeks. All right, so now let's go back and let's design a program for this person. You also learn from the other people in the class, you know? I mean, there's 3 faculty, me and 2 other docs, but then you learn from the other students a lot too. I think you end up learning as much from the other people in the class because you see people who are at your level who are kind of struggling and you see them realizing stuff. Or like we had some cases last week where it was a new doctor and she was submitting pre and post GI testing and pre and post metabolomics testing. And so she's been doing this for like 6 months, and she's showing me as the teacher how much better her patients are on the follow-up test, but she's really showing the whole group that. So everybody got to see the glutathione levels get better and the autoimmune problem go away. Everybody got to see the GI microbiome get better and the IBS problem go away, right? It's like cool to see your colleagues and peers learn how to apply this and be successful. I think it's more inspiring than watching me pontificate for hour after hour. Okay, so carnitine. It doesn't matter where you get it. I get mine from Designs for Health or Pure, but let's just do it by milligrams. So let's say you want to do, let's be conservative, shall we? Let's say 700 milligrams. This is a pretty bad case, right? 3 times a day. Be careful, it can cause loose stool in some people. You have to have B complex in there, especially the B2. Let's say a few of those. And then you need some magnesium, or this doesn't work. I usually use the glycinate form, but you have other forms of magnesium. That's usually in 100. And then if you're going to get beta oxidation working, think of this. Let's say all this works perfectly. Let's say it all works perfectly. And all of a sudden, this person's beta oxidation is working for the first time, maybe in their whole life. So you're like super psyched. You're like, we got your beta oxidation working. So all of a sudden, what's happening is the block on fat burning that's been plaguing this person for decades is released. The dam is broken, and all these fatty acids are coming into the citric acid cycle. What the heck do you think is going to happen lower down? Like, you're going to need a lot more stuff to run the citric acid cycle and to make ATP, because all of a sudden all this fat's going to be coming in. Okay, all these fatty acids are going to be converting to acetyl-CoA, and that's going to turn into energy. So you got to anticipate greater energy needs. So there's an easy way to deal with that. Rather than giving 100 different supplements, you can just give a basic mitochondrial support product, like a broad spectrum one, you know. And so you can use. It's kind of got a. Oh no, it's called mitochondrial energy. There's also one that's from Designs, or there's one called mitochondrial ATP. They're kind of identical. That's from Pure. So that has all the little things you need in it to make mitochondrial energy. They're going to need that. So you would do, let's say, 2 to 3 of those twice a day. That'll really make the whole thing work. So you're giving the carnitine to get the beta oxidation working, but then you're adding this other product in because you know there's going to be more ATP produced all of a sudden. And then what else was on there? Well, that's probably enough. Let me see here. What causes most beta oxidation problems? Could be that your patient is a vegan and they don't eat any meat, because obviously carnitine, you can kind of tell it's from meat. That's relatively unusual. I've never seen it, but I know it's theoretically a possibility. I've had plenty of vegans tested, and usually their carnitine levels are just fine. But it could be that they're vegetarian. More likely, it's a long chain fatty acid disorder. It's genetic. Do I have my book? Oh my gosh. Oh my god. There's a whole book on this. All right. So who's asking that question even? Alejandre. So for Alejandre, this is the book you should get. It's called Inherited Metabolic Disease in Adults. Inherited metabolic disease in adults. And it gets into these things like, how could you have such a big carnitine problem? Why are you so tired and fat? Well, because you have a genetic defect with carnitine, okay, with the processing of carnitine. And turns out it's a whole big thing, long chain fatty acid oxidation disorders. It's been studied aggressively by geneticists throughout the world. And in fact, many of the markers that we see, like the methylation one too, we just saw oh, that was right. I was supposed to do methylation on this person. Methylation defect, that's usually genetic too. Like how could you be low in B6 and folate? Probably there's a problem with your genes that's expressing. So many, if not most of these problems end up having a genetic basis. Sorry, I got the wrong one there. And what we see on these labs is the expression of the genes in real time that we can then address. So we want to use also something like we need to have some extra folate and B6. So B6, let's say, usually you use P5P, that's a special fancy form of B6. Let's say you get 100 milligram. Let's say you use a 50 milligram to be more careful. They were really deficient in B6, so you could do this. Don't give somebody this much B6 unless you know they're very deficient. That would be dangerous. Remember, every nutrient can be a toxicant. So why are we giving all this B6? Because that marker was crazy high. It was double the reference range. You're going to stop and retest in 3 to 6 months. You're not going to keep them on this much B6. B6 can become a toxin. B6 can make you sick. So you never would give this much B6 unless you know that they need it and you know you can retest. And then they need like a B complex with some folate. Same thing there. You don't want to do this forever. It's 3 to 6 months and you're going to stop and retest. Pretty much guarantee you, if even this is all you did, this person would feel dramatically different in like 2 or 3 months. Once you get beta oxidation working, people are come back and just like they're going to lose weight, they're going to have more energy, they're going to feel like $1,000,000. Yeah. And let's see. I'm just going to treat you guys like you're in the mentorship class, okay? So I'm going to pretend Alejandro is a mentorship student because he asked that question. And I would take the time to do this, not usually in a free webinar, but I'm trying to pretend like this is the real mentorship. So I would take the time to say, hey, that was a really good question. I'm glad you asked it. And then I would go over to this website and I'd say, hey, let's talk about this for a few minutes because this is, nobody's going to ever tell you about this. You got to know it. Long chain fatty acid oxidation disorders are a group of rare, life-threatening autosomal recessive disorders. Now, they can be life-threatening. We're not talking about that. This person's obviously not dead. This person's like just a little messed up. So you can have adult onset versions that are much, much milder of these kinds of disorders that could be life-threatening for a newborn baby. Just like you could be gluten intolerant and get bloated when you eat too much pizza, or you could be gluten intolerant and eat a crouton and be in the emergency room. There's a spectrum. You could have high blood pressure, or you could have a heart attack and be dead, right? There's a spectrum for all of these processes. And so for these genetic disorders like long chain fatty acid disorders, some people, it's a life-threatening problem and that's discovered in early childhood. And other people, it's just like a nagging thing and it's discovered by you, their functional medicine doctor. It's the same exact problem, it's just far less severe. That's what this person probably has. Why do I think that? Because both those markers were high. Like what else could cause that? Maybe if they're vegan, but like I said, that's usually not related to diet. So we just discovered something pretty important just now. We're talking about a beta oxidation problem, which is, let me say it again, completely unrelated to this person's diet. A problem with the mitochondria making energy from fat, completely unrelated to what they're eating. Okay. but they're going to feel like they have a blood sugar problem. They're going to feel like they're tired all the time. They're going to feel like their mitochondria aren't working because they're not getting the fat that they need. And you just all you have to do is run that metabolomics test and you'll nail it. I'm telling you, if you were treating this patient without this test, you would be thinking they had a blood sugar problem or they were just lazy or they weren't working out enough or I don't know what you would think. But you would be wrong until you did the test. And that's why doing these tests is so important because you're going to discover these things. They're so profound for your patients. Um, and I have to say, being in my 60s now and having done this for so long, there's a certain joy in this. Like when I talk to graduates of the mentorship program and they're at the end of the year, they're like happier people. They're like satisfied that they're getting to the root cause of these problems finally. It's pretty inspiring for me to witness this transition. There, it's a change in your consciousness, a change in your awareness about the depth to which you can take this functional medicine work, and that's pretty much what I've dedicated myself to these last bunch of years. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm going strong with this. So we want a bunch of you to sign up for the class. I'm going to now go through questions. And I want to also thank all of you that submitted labs that we didn't get a chance to review. Totally appreciate you guys doing that. All right, so let me go through questions here and see what's up. Uh, can acupuncturists order labs? Absolutely, yeah. Um, you can do it. I think the easiest way is just to go through Rupa and use their physician authorization. That's the easiest way. You can also get all the Genova testing from Genova Connect. Just patients go and order it themselves. You don't have to be involved in that. Easy to do, okay? Um, let's see. How long should patients be off supplements? At least 2, 3 weeks. Let's see. Oh, under which circumstance? I'm going to say this again for Sharon. You always want to run an OAT test on every patient, either organic acids from DSL lab, we saw one of those, or organic acids called metabolomics from Genova. And if you don't know how to interpret them yet, that's what the class is for. You sign up and you'll be doing this. When you sign up for the mentorship next month, Sharon, in September, we want you to bring your organic acids test to the class. We're going to interpret them in real time and teach you how to do this as you go, okay? There's no point in waiting around to learn how to do this. How much time do you expect to spend during the mentorship? It's like 3 to 5 hours a week minimum. 3 to 5 hours a week minimum. There's an endless number of things you can do, but we want like about, on average, 3 to 5 hours to get what you need out of it. More than that is great. Yeah, so if you're there's a question from Susan. Nurse practitioners can take the class, of course, medical doctors, osteopaths, chiropractors, acupuncturists, anybody with those backgrounds. We have some health coaches and unlicensed people. If you're in that category, just email and I can talk to you about if it's a good fit or not, because we don't want you getting in over your head. But there's certainly a lot of health coaches that have taken the class and been successful. Okay. Um, let's see. There's many other tests like intracellular nutrients, totally great. I don't teach those, but they're totally great. You want to stop protocols in general for at least a week before you retest, depending on which thing you're talking about. If it's a GI protocol, it's probably more like 2 or 3 weeks. So Ulan is asking about how long to take supplements. Each one of these programs I'm talking about has a time frame. So like glutathione boosting, 6 months, then stop, retest. GI corrections, 2 to 3 months, then stop, then retest. Adrenal programs, 6 to 12 months, then stop, then retest. So every set of protocols has specific times that you generally need to do them before you would stop and retest. And that's going to vary depending on how aggressive you are with the dosing and what the problem is, okay? If Kathy is asking if dioxanol is out of stock, what do I use? I usually use then just like a lipoic acid synergy or something like that from Designs. Oh, this is a good question from John. How do standard labs like chemscreen, CBC iron fit into this approach? Functional medicine is based on a predicated on this whole concept that we're looking for the underlying cause: adrenals, stress, GI, microbiome, organic acids, liver, brain, and mitochondria. Independent of that, there's this whole other world of human health problems that you would see on a standard blood workup: chemscreen, CBC, iron, and all that. So we're assuming that's being done, right? And that you're going to see the negative effects of stress, GI, and organic acids related problems on blood work, and that needs to be treated independently. So a lot of clinics will run a standard blood workup and then the functional medicine assessments, and usually they'll do the standard blood workup typically like once a year as your regular checkup. But you're not treating those things in the same way that we are going to treat a beta oxidation problem or a glutathione problem. But you will find that the blood work will improve as you improve the person's liver health. Of course, their cholesterol levels are going to dramatically improve. As you improve the person's dopamine levels, like we saw in one of the earlier cases, of course their blood pressure is going to improve and their mood is going to improve. They won't need their blood pressure meds. They won't need their antidepressants anymore. So of course you're going to see medical problems improving as the person gets healthier, but we're running these two independent tracks: a functional medicine assessment and then a conventional medical assessment, right? And a lot of people do those side by side. We have tons of primary care practitioners in the classes nowadays. So a lot of people are running a whole primary care clinic and doing this other functional medicine thing at the same time, which is great if you're a primary care nurse practitioner or medical doc or osteopath. We talked about carnitine. I use the carnitine from Designs for Health because it's a little less expensive than the other brands, but it's really good quality. So how much is the mentorship? That's a good question. Well, you get $1,000 off here, and let's see. I'm going to pull that up. Um, who's asking now? Oh, and the B6 that I use is from Designs. Everybody has B6, so it's called P5P. Evelina's asking this now. So if you get the discount, that's always going to lower the price of the mentorship. And if you sign up, there's a payment option or a pay in full option. And so let's scoot down there. Classes. We have a ton of other classes, but this is really the premier one. Starting September 16th. So it's $35.99 for monthly payments. So you make the payments monthly for 4 months at that amount. And if you do the discount thing, you get $1,000 off of that. Or you can pay in full. It's like $1,400, and you would get $1,000 off of that if you get the discount. Okay, so those are the prices. Thanks for asking, Evelina. Oh, and so the live calls meet once a week for an hour. Everything else is recorded, so you can join. You can listen to the lectures whenever you have time. You can listen to the other courses, the other live calls when they're recorded, the next day. So there's a commitment of 1 hour a week when you really should be on the live call. I mean, if your kids are sick or something, you can just listen to the recording, but you should be most of the time doing that. And then, like I said, at least 3 to 5 hours a week total time. But most of this time, we want you working with your patients. This is not like time just sitting around twiddling your thumbs, right? This is time that you're actually doing stuff. So after they stop supplements, will the problem return? Absolutely not. We're healing people. That's the whole point of functional medicine, is if you have a glutathione deficiency and you fix it and it comes back, then you screwed up. You, the doctor, screwed up by not figuring out why they have a glutathione deficiency. Okay. If you have a glutathione deficiency and you fix it, and then you figure out, oh gosh, this is because of some chemical toxin in the body, get that toxin out, the glutathione problem is going to go away. Or maybe it's because they're eating the wrong foods. They don't eat enough vegetables. You get their diet cleared out. So as you fix these lab markers, they should stay fixed. If they don't, you start to suspect a genetic problem. And in case of genetic issues, there may be more need for ongoing supplementation. But the vast majority of supplements for the vast majority of people should stop when they're better. Okay. In fact, Dr. Budding said this to me 30 years ago. He said, look, kid, he called me Danny. I don't know why all these old guys used to call me Danny. He said, Danny, look, the better you get at the job, the fewer things you're going to do, and the faster it's going to go. So the idea is you're fixing stuff and then stopping. This is not supplements forever land, not at all. Not if you know what you're doing, okay? So is there support available to the graduates of the mentorship program? Yes, there is. In fact, we have a whole community called Mentorship Membership, and most people stay in the membership for a long time, for like an extra couple of years. Because guess what? Like you learn all this stuff. I'm talking kind of fast today, but then a year goes by, you're pretty good at it, but then you're like, oh, I got this new case. I never saw this one before. So we have an ongoing membership subscription thing you can stay in. We have an amazing group of doctors in that group, and you can stay on the live calls as long as you want. You can keep your access to the curriculum as long as you want. We charge $299 a month for this ongoing thing. We have tons of practitioners doing that. Probably more than half end up staying because they just want more exposure. They're still learning. Um, I mean, we have some, but we have some doctors. I'm not promoting this necessarily, but we have some doctors that have been on that recurring call for like over 15 years. Almost makes me want to cry. I mean, they're like family. Anyways, why would they stay that long? Just because you learn something every week. You learn like one new thing. It's worth it. Let's see. The link for the mentorship again with the discount. Oh, well, thank you, Julie. Someone's gonna sign up. I'm so excited. Let's see here. Where is that? Let me find that. That's like the most important thing. Here. There. Thank you, Julie. Let's see. And there's a bunch of mentorship grads on here too. Thank you. In fact, like is Wes is on this call. Wes Bradford. Wes Bradford is on this call. I am honored. I have to say, Dr. Bradford is my absolute favorite person that's ever taken the mentorship. I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but I see him on the call. I'm tearing up a little bit. I don't know why I love this man so much. I think it's because he's like a doctor, but he's like a healer. So Wes, I don't know why you joined the call today, but reach out, schedule a phone call with me if you have a minute. I'd love to catch up and see what you're doing. Um, I meet the best doctors in this class. I really do. And what we're really looking for, honestly, like my secret mission is to find and train healers so you guys can like be the best out there. Yeah, we do lab interpretation skills, but it's there's a lot more than that going on. Okay. Are there live calls accessible to Hawaii time zone? Yeah. We've had a ton of people take this class from Hawaii. So we have the live calls for the mentorship are Tuesday mornings at 9 Pacific time, Tuesday afternoons at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and Wednesday mornings at 9 Pacific time. So we have people from Dubai, from Hawaii, we have people from all over the United States and Europe. So we try to accommodate all time zones. And then if you're interested in signing up for the mentorship, I have a call scheduled where I always talk to new students or if you're just curious about the class. So if my time schedule doesn't fit with yours because you're in Dubai or Hawaii or something, just ask the office and we'll fit in an additional time so I can speak with you in person. Um, let's see. I wonder, I think we're way over time, but there's so many questions coming in. Let me just see if I can cover the important ones. Um, a tryptophan question. All right, well, that's intriguing. Carl, what's your tryptophan question? You can type it in. Let's see. I'm way over time here, you guys. I'm just going to keep going because there's so many questions. So, how long is access to the program? So you have a year to access the program. This is for Natalia. And then after that year, you can stay in the membership if you want. Um, yeah, so we have a bunch of other smaller class, not smaller, shorter classes starting too. So you guys can look at those as well. There's going to be one on hormones on a regular basis. We have organic acids as a separate thing, female hormones, adrenal hormones, GI. So the bunch of shorter form classes. They're usually around $1,000, give or take, if you want to start with one of those. We also have this level 1 certification, which you can do as well. Um, let's see here. I think I'm covering on most of these. An unusual number of questions here. Uh, we don't have a list of Kalish trained doctors posted anywhere anymore. We used to, but I just have to Google people. Um, So in the advanced group, we do talk a lot about mold toxicity and toxin load in general. And if you're interested in toxins specifically, I'm teaching a class on that uh, in September. Okay. So those of you that don't want to do the mentorship, let me just show you here, the other stuff that's coming up. Who's asking this? Oh, this is Evelina. Okay, so we go back here, Evelina. Let me just show you the other things that we got going on. So we also have this longevity certification thing, okay? And in that, the next of those classes, and you can do these one at a time, is here, uh, toxins and detoxification. So this is a couple month class just on toxins and detoxification. It includes mold, heavy metals, chemicals, in depth just on that one subject, okay? Those of you that want to do like an in-depth thing. Nothing else covered here though. It's not an integration kind of class where you're integrating labs across, 3 different types of labs across, a single case. This is just deep into detoxification, if that's what you guys want to do, okay? And then, let's see, someone else just mentioned what's starting. Oh, wow, yeah, look at this. It's starting tomorrow, female hormones. So that's our level 1 class. So level 1 is around $5,000 to do the whole thing, but you can do it separately in chunks. Female hormones, organic acids, adrenals, and GI. So for people that aren't ready for the mentorship, you just want to learn a piece of this, you can string it all together into level 1. But in level 1, we don't really have the time to incorporate the whole bigger picture, case review, hundreds of cases kind of thing. It's like a truncated, smaller version of it, and it's priced accordingly. So you can do just a single level 1 module like this one. It's $1,400. Yep. Okay. If you guys aren't ready for the bigger class, and a lot of people do level 1 and then they graduate themselves up to the mentorship later on. That's a common path. So New York patients are a pain in the butt. I know that's a problem. Um, I think Vibrant has a lot of their labs approved in New York, so you could check out Vibrant. Let's see. Oh, here's a question from Carl. So it's about tryptophan. When the pathway has chronic inflammation imposed and the kynurenine pathway is going to quinolinic, how do glial cells correlate to rebalance CNS and peripheral? I don't know the answer to that. That's a little over my pay grade. I'm not sure about that. Sorry, Carl, I can't help with that one. Is there a mini or 6-month version of this? The cost is out of budget. Yeah, if you're on a smaller budget, do the level 1. It's one at a time. It's like $1,400. We could start with level 1 tomorrow. Do the female hormones. Wait a few months, you do organic acids. Wait a few months, you do adrenals. You need to take some time off, and then you can wrap it up with GI. At the end of the year, you'll get all 4 areas covered, and then you can just do the integration part a little bit more on your own. So that's why we designed level 1. It's a less time, less money. You can do the whole series of all 4 for like $5,000, or you can just pay as you go. If you're on a tighter budget, then just start in with these, and we'll make it happen. All the level 1 classes also have a live lab interpretation part to it. It's just not as intense. There's not as much going on as with the mentorship. But still, people learn a lot. I mean, those live calls are really good. They're super good. So it's not, I don't want to put it down in any way. It's just, slightly lighter weight version of it. Yeah, that was to answer Julie's question. Okay, gang, we're way over time. Thank you for all the questions. We got more of these coming up. We'll talk again soon. All right, bye for now.